because it's important to know progression, right? Where are we at with Samuel? Why? How did we get from point B? And I'm going to show you. What do we know about Hannah? She had virtues, right? Samuel's story opens with divine intention. He was born because God intervened, and he was dedicated because his mother surrendered. Yes. That's why I wanted to read off on verse 11 to remind you that what happened with Hannah, she wanted a son, and God granted her a son, but what happened? She had to give that child up to the Lord, right? And she made a covenant with God, and she keeps that covenant. Different, and we're going to see, than Eli and how he brings up his son. Okay? So Samuel was dedicated because his mother surrendered. Because his mother surrendered. He was positioned because God was preparing something larger than anyone realized, and we're going to see, right? And how? How does God raise up an unlikely servant like Samuel when the system is already filled with these leaders, already positioned? What do we expect? That Eli, he's the priest, and that his sons would carry that on. Samuel is not Eli's son, right? He is not in position to take over anything. So how does this occur? Again, when Hannah is praying, already what was happening in Eli's heart was what? Disobedience. How do we know this? Because the children, these young men, are brought in, and what are they? Are they kids like Samuel? No, what are they? They're grown. So what is already happening in Eli? He is already demonstrating disobedience. Hannah, when she's praying for something, she doesn't realize that there's something else to come. God is sovereign in everything he does. And so when we are understanding, we think things in very momentary things, right? We're like, the prayer request, the next event. Oh, I need to get my kid through this situation. But you have to remember that God is sovereign. And he had already positioned Hannah to have this kind of heart, this kind of virtue, this kind of morality to bring up for 5 years. And you're going to see it's longer because, she goes and visits him. But to prepare a young boy for what? To take over, to replace what is already disobedient, what is already positioned for set leadership. Does that make sense? Yes. So in your prayers, when you are praying, remember that some things don't make sense sometimes. Remember that some situations don't always fully make sense, but God is already sovereign, and he has not just your generation, but generations and generations and generations to come. Pray with that in mind. Have peace with that in mind, right? So, God is going to overthrow, and he's going to re-establish something. Hannah's song already told us, and I want to go back, right, just to kind of refresh you. But what God does, he humbles the proud. What did we hear in her song? He humbles the proud. He exalts the weak. He frustrates the strong. And he raises up the faithful, the obedient. So now we move into Eli and his sons in verse 11. And what do you see already? He says, now the sons of Eli were what? Scoundrels. Worthless. Some Bible versions say worthless. And why do you think, why would God call anybody worthless?
They're not in their purpose, they're not doing anything at all.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Now,
bad to be called worthless by God.
You have to remember, Eli and his line, all of his people were designed for what?
Priesthood.
Priesthood. That is what they were designed for. Priestlyhood line. If they are not doing priestly duties in line with God, what is their purpose?
Right.
Samson, prayed for Samson, was created only to destroy the Philistines, at the end he loses his purpose. Why? Because he uses his position, his authority, his strength for himself. Just like you see these men do. And so because of that, God calls them worthless. They are scoundrels. Why? And you think that's a big deal, right? For God to call you something like this, right? But it's important to note this because for you and your body, your position, your power, what God created to do has a specific purpose in mind. We are created. We are designed. It is not by happenstance that we are created in the womb to serve Him and to do what we're called to do. Whatever gifts, whatever calling He has on your life, whatever position He has for you to do, is not so that you can live in a white picket fence. I'm not saying that's bad. I don't know. But you will. I will. But what I'm saying is that is not my calling. That is not what I was designed to do. When we lose what we're created to do, we lose our purpose and we are considered worthless.
Yes. Wow.
Worthless. Think about that, guys. We are supposed to be Christians. Small word, Christ-like. We are little Christians, little Christ.
The elect.
Are we positioning ourselves for that in the kingdom program?
They knew better, you know, so they're not following, but they knew better. That's
Yeah.
probably why he says that about them.
And you're going to see, guys, that it is so important that when God creates you, that you find your purpose, because you're not going to feel the total fulfillment until you do what God has called you to do. That might not look like an extravagant life. Samuel lived in servanthood. He lived to serve for the rest of his life, yet he had so much of a legacy that was left. In fact, he wrote books that we still read today because he dedicated his life to being a servant. Remember that. Remember that in your Christ walk, right? He says, Eli, the sons of Eli were scoundrels who had no what? Regard, no respect for the Lord. Who should have taught them respect for the Lord?
Father.
The Father. The Father was positioned there to show respect for the Lord. That is literally, he's a priest. That is his job. And what do you see him not doing that job in his own household? When you look at your household, if you are a mother, if you're positioned an aunt, whatever you're positioned as, think about it. In your own home, do you represent Christ? Do you show your family that we need to respect the Lord? Do we show those around us not just respect the Lord, but I'm going to take it a step further to say it is our duty, like Hannah, to show virtues in this child as we bring them up. Those around you, it is our obligation and our duty. And I'm going to show you what happens when we fail to do this duty. So he says, whenever anyone offered a sacrifice, Eli's son would send them over to a servant with a 3-pronged fork. While the meat of the sacrificed animal was still boiling, the servant would stick the fork into the pot and demand that whatever it brought up be given to Eli's sons. All the Israelites who came to worship at Shiloh were treated this way. Sometimes the servant would come even before the animal's fat had been burned on the altar. He would demand raw meat before it had been boiled so that it could be used for roasting. What does this, all this detail include? What it means?
It's detailed because they're supposed to follow certain steps.
Yes. The priest would go and for a sacrifice, they would take certain meat for their rituals, usually the breast, the inner part of the thigh, they were allowed to eat. But there in the rituals, what do you see the sons doing? They're saying, I want the fattiest part, but I don't want it to be burned, right? Because we all know, I mean, maybe you could, or maybe you like to eat. I don't cook, but I like to eat. We know that the fat is tasty. So what are they asking? I want it raw. Why? So I can take it back and eat it for pleasure. Is that their job?
No.
Is that what they're supposed to be called to do? No.
But also they're taking from the Lord,
Yes. They're taking from the Lord, but not just that, but imagine the Israelites that traveled so far to come to these priests to what? Sacrifice their whatever sacrifice they came up with for that year to the Lord, and the priests are saying, hey, I need to cut off of that.
They're being stumbling blocks.
What do you think that they're seeing of this leadership?
Yeah.
If they're supposed to represent God?
Corruption.
Corruption. Do you think they're going to want to serve a God that they see these people, that these leaders are corrupt? No. No. They're not going to want to serve these individuals, or they're not going to want to serve God when they see these individuals doing these things. They're going to say, because they represent God, then I don't want to follow that God, because if that is corrupt, then that is probably corrupt as well.
Yeah.
And God hates that.
False.
It's misleading, and you see this often with leadership or with people in religious positions. What do? They start gaining profit, or it's about me, or it's about position, or how I can get things from, and sometimes they take it to the extreme of abuse, right? And we see this, it comes out on national television and whatnot, right? Is that they say, I'm in this position of power, and instead of using it for what God has called them to, they use it to abuse their power. And God detests that. Why? Because he is not going to be humiliated.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see where God is starting to prepare for something, his wrath, right? So, what do we see? In contrast, we're going to see verse 16. If somebody can read 16 and 17 for me.
If the person said to him, let the fat be burned first, and then take whatever you want, the servant would answer, no, if you don't, I'll take it by force.
So if somebody would come back at them and say, this is not right, I don't think this is okay, what do you see them doing?
Forcing it.
being aggressive, right?
They're taking it by force. So they have no regard. So not only are they secretly doing things, right? They're blatantly saying, not only am I going to disrespect the Lord, because this is an offering, it's not like, we're not dealing with something outside of their church. They're doing it in the temple. Blatant, right? And then they're forcing people to comply with their wishes, right?
Shall we read the next one?
Yes.
This sin of the young men was very great in the Lord's sight, for they were treating the Lord's offering with contempt.
They were treating the Lord's offering with contempt. And as my sister said over here, they're taking from the Lord. They're taking from the Lord. The Lord, how does he respond to that? So the sins of the young man was very serious in the Lord's sight. A lot of people, they think, they want to come up, they all are teaching, and, I want to go sing, I want to be in front of people. And you don't actually understand the depth of this position here. And I have to often pray against my own self, pride, my skills. Why? Because we're naturally inclined for these things. But God holds this position seriously, that if I in any way try to use it to, hey, you know what, I'm in this position, I want everybody, come help me move, guys, because, I'm not teaching. when I do it for my own intentions, I know that I'm held responsible. And when you are, some of us are in front of people, take this position seriously. But not just that, guys, but be mindful of who you are following as well. What does your leadership look like, right? Now, opposite, so verse 18 and 18 to 20, please.
But Samuel was ministering before the Lord, a boy wearing a linen ephod. Each year, his mother made him a little robe and took it to him when she went up with her husband to offer the annual sacrifice.
Okay. So, we already talked about Hannah's character. Now we're going to talk about how Samuel, so we see this strike contrast. You're going to see it continuously in Samuel. We're going to see it in David and Saul. We're going to see it here with Samuel and Eli and his sons. While this is going on, why does it right after this, why does he immediately start talking about Samuel? Because he wants you to see the complete opposite of why, because he's going to replace, okay? So while you see these men doing this, he says, now Samuel, though only a boy. Why is that important? Because a very unlikely person, though only a boy, was the Lord's helper. He wore a linen tunic just like that of a priest. Each year his mother made a small coat for him and brought it to him when she came with her husband for the sacrifice. Why is this important? Because the mother each year would make him a robe. He's not a priest. What was Hannah's intention in making a little robe?
Like training him to
Show him roles, to show him.
sewing into the child.
She is showing him what he is called to do. Each year when he grows, we all know if we have kids, right? He can't have any high water robes, right? High water tunics. So each year she makes this with care and dedication, and she brings him each year to remind him what you're called to do, Samuel. You are called to be a servant, Samuel. You are called to be greater, Samuel. And because of that, each year I must remind you, you are not like the others. Why is that important? Because as mothers, or when you're positioned to help people underneath, you are granted the authority by God to remind your children who they are in the Lord. So many of our mothers or parents, they dress them up like doctors so that they can be positioned for these things, or little lawyers so they can do these things. But what is important is to say, what is our purpose? Solomon, what is your purpose? To serve the Lord. You are a helper. You are underneath. You are the lowest. I remember growing up and I would be so frustrated with my parents because I would say, can somebody else clean this church? It's just, and at the time it was a lot less people. And it was me, Laura, Andy, my parents, every weekend. And I would say, is there anybody else? We have like 30 people at this point. But what were they training us constantly to remember is that no, if we are above, we are below. We clean, we serve. The nursery, continuously do. And I would get frustrated. One of my things that I would hate so much, he still does it, I'm an adult. He's like, go talk to that little girl. I was like 8 years old and I'm like, I hate to talk to people so much. Go do this. And he was training us as children. Our purpose is not for my comfort, but to go out of your way to serve, Krista. You are a servant, Christ-like. You are beneath, you are below. Go serve, go do, give up your seat, do these things. And it would frustrate me because I'm like, are we not important? Are we just like scum here in church? But what was he training? What was the discipline portion of that? Was to say that we need to do this. Why? Because Christ was like this.
And it's completely opposite of what society today wants to teach our kids.
Yes. What do? Did
Entitlement.
Instead of asking, what did my kid do?
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna get into some of those things, but what does they say? Samuel was young, he was unknown, and he was quietly faithful. But the boy ministered to the Lord. In some of your Bibles, it talks about that. And I love that it uses the word minister, because in the Hebrew word, the word ministers means to serve. So Samuel is serving. Who before people, like all the Eli's sons? No, before the Lord. That means that he was quietly, dutifully, just like Hannah, year after year, what? Serving and helping the Lord. Do you train your kids to be helpers of the Lord?
Right.
To do it quietly, not in front of everybody. Do it quietly. Go clean bathrooms so nobody sees. Go do this. It is not to say, oh, you know, my kids are just beneath, but this is a training to show what? That we are servants. We are servants. But instead, what happens is, like Eli, we raise our children up. We raise our children up to think that everybody is below them and they are high. Nobody can talk to me like that, and they know it. The moment the teacher comes and tells them anything, I'm going to go to my mom, because my mom, she's going to tell them something. That's how we train our children. Oh, I can't do this, or oh, you know what? You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that, Deacon Jose, you can't tell me about my gum. My mom is right here. And that's how we train our children, that they are these little gods or princes here. And I'm Mexican, guys, I get it, I have a son. Sometimes I have to remind myself that what? Train them in the things of the Lord, quietly, submissive, to do what we're called to do. Eli's sons were positioned, they were powerful, but they were spiritually empty. And ultimately, what does the Bible say? They did not know the Lord. How sad is it for Eli, who was a priest, who was called to teach the word, who was called and positioned for leadership, that his own family did not know the Lord? And I know a lot of pastors and their kids, and I mean, they get that designation for a reason sometimes, right? That the pastor's kids are sometimes the worst kids. Right? Why? Because what happens is that they go and they're teaching the congregation, but in their own home, they forget to give that also to their children, that designation to say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to serve the Lord in our own home. I'm going to preach in my home. And I will be a testament. You know, my daddy, he would teach us. He tells you all the time, he would preach to us 3 times before y'all heard the message. I can memorize his lectures. But why? Because he was very adamant about teaching the word to his children.
Invested in you.
Instilled, ingrained in us. What do you do for your children? Are you ingraining the word into your children? Are you saying, we are going to serve the Lord? So many times I hear where parents are saying, they just don't want to come, I don't want to force religion on them. And let me tell you, you will lose them far before. Why? Because the issue isn't forcing them. You already, just like Eli, took it upon yourself to forget. When it's difficult, when you're tired, after you get out of work, what do? Share the gospel to your kids. Take the time. You think that they're young. My 4-year-old, she can tell you the gospel. Why? Because I try to take the time. I have to remind myself too, because I get tired. And I have to say, Maurice, what is the word saying? She'll tell you. I feel the Lord when we're singing. He's before me, behind me. I'm like, are you quoting a song right now?
Yes.
Either way, we are, does this mean that you will have perfect children? No. No, and is this, are there exceptions to the rule? Yes, there are plenty of parents that have maybe bad children. But in Eli, you're gonna see where God holds him accountable for this.
Yes.
So religious proximity is not spiritual intimacy. They stole from sacrifices. They threatened the worshipers. They treated holy things casually. The sin of the young men was very great before the Lord. And yet between those, now Samuel was ministering before the Lord. So you see how the downfall is starting to occur with Eli's sons, and what? The upbringing of Samuel. God is already showing us who is rising and who is falling. Hannah brings Samuel a robe each year. It's a small detail, but it's a huge theology point that we need to address, which is she is reinforcing the identity, who we are. And in Judges, it is a time where men were doing right in their own eyes. Just like now, men are doing things right in their own eyes. That is no excuse not to bring your children up to do what is right by the Lord. She is nurturing what? A calling to say, you are called to be different. Maybe you hear all that at school, Ezra, but in here, we're different. We're called to be different. Hey, Ronnie, I know you see other kids throwing those tantrums, but here, we're not going to. And what is this whole theology? But she is participating in God's future. Meanwhile, Eli hears about his son's wickedness, and we're going to see what he does. A mild rebuke, offense. The issue is not that Eli lacked information, because he was a priest. The issue is that Eli lacked obedience. And we're going to hear that later. So let's go to 20 and 21.
Eli blessed Elkanah and his wife, saying, may the Lord give you children by this one to take the place of the one she prayed for and gave to the Lord. Then they would go home, and the Lord was gracious to Hannah. She gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters. Meanwhile, the boy Samuel grew up in the presence of the Lord.
And many people would think, like, that's harsh, right? She just replaced her kid. No. Every year, she continued to nurture this calling. And her greatest gift was to see Samuel and what he became. To give that up. Do you know how hard or difficult it has been for her mother, to give up her child up to servanthood? To say, I wanted this for such a long time, God. I've sacrificed this for such a long time. But to give it up, God sees the sacrifice and he says, don't worry. I am going to bless you and you will have more children to come. Why? Because she was obedient day in, day out. She didn't make excuses to say, I'm tired. I don't want to do this. No, day in, day out, she was obedient. Contrary to her sister wife, she chose to be obedient to the Lord. And for us women, we should strive to want to be obedient to the Lord. Not just on Sundays, not just on Wednesdays, but every day to try to be obedient to the Lord, to exemplify Christ, whether or not your husband is doing it also. Why? Because we are called to nurture these children. We look at their face, and if you say you love your child, be obedient to the Lord. The biggest testimony that you can show your children is your life. Is your life to say day in, day out, I'm not going to lose my temper. I'm going to show restraint. I'm going to pray. I'm going to show you what it is like to go through hardship. What do we do, Maurice? Come pray with me. And she did. She was 2, 3 years old at that time. Come pray with me. Let me show you, when you go through something difficult, what does it mean to submit to the Lord? Go to church. And they would ask, where's Dad? Why is he not coming? For me and my household, we will serve the Lord. You come with me. You two will come to church. We will be obedient to the Lord. Why? Because I'm still designated to be over them. And we will be obedient and showing your children. Despite what everybody else is doing, Samuel could have said, well, your sons are doing it.
Yeah.
This is what I was showed. This is what I was taught. This is what I was brought into. Situational trauma, family trauma. No, what does the Lord say? You are different. You are called to be different. Be obedient to the Lord.
Good, Krista.
It was what did she do? She was disciplined. It was not dramatic. It was consistent. Consistent discipline, guys, is essential for children.
Amen.
Very important. And you're going to see the contrary with Eli, right? People struggle with discipline because they say, I love my kid. I can't discipline my son. I can't discipline my child. But what are we called to do? Just because they are disobedient to God, we are then called even more so to provide consistent discipline so that when they get older, your discipline can then lead to instruction because they already heed your word, because they listen, because they respect. But when we say, I love them so much, just like Eli, and I don't want to provide this discipline, you're creating something. A spiritual battle that you will rage. It will be in your home for years. Years. Why? Because you nurture something in them that nobody can tell me anything, including you. Nobody can say that I'm wrong, including you, Mom. Now, I'm going to do as I want because I'm an adult. I still wouldn't tell my mom. But why? Because does she have to discipline me now? No, it's instruction. Because I heeded the words. Because when they're small, when they're 3 to 5 or 3 years old, right? The consequences are smaller because they do things that are little. But you have to be consistent in that discipline. No, Solomon, you can't call somebody names at school. No, you can't do this, Solomon. Solomon needs a lot of instructions. But we have to be consistent in them. Because if you don't, what do you nurture? You're nurturing their disobedience. And that is not love. And eventually that, what you call, I'm loving my mijo, my mija, oh, nobody can touch them. Eventually, they will be chaos in society. And we have all seen those people. Why? Because you created it. You nurtured it. You said that was okay. You said, oh, he didn't do anything wrong, teacher. Oh, did you teach him right? Did you have X, Y, and Z in line for them? Teach your children how to obey authority early, or they're going to struggle for the rest of their life.
Take
Some of you are probably married to some of those.
Oh.
So he says, he wore an ephod. Why? Because it served in the small details. Daily faithfulness. That's what she was reminding him when no one was applauding. Before Samuel was a big prophet, before Samuel was the big guy in town, what did Hannah show her son? Which is to serve, to be obedient. She nurtured it. She wove that little robe in to say, I am loving you. This is how he interprets love. Can you understand that? Samuel would wait every year for his mom because he knew, I'm getting a new little robe. I'm getting a new little robe. Why? Because if he's like, I'm gonna make my mom proud, what do I have to do? I'm serving the Lord. Do your kids think that? I want to make you so proud. I'm going to serve the Lord. I think that. If some of y'all look at some of the pictures that y'all take, I'm like, I made my father proud. Why? When I serve the Lord. And behind closed doors, guys. Behind closed doors as well. So we're going to see how Eli responds. So verse 22. Go ahead.
Now Eli, very old, heard about everything his sons, he heard about everything his sons were doing to all Israel, and how they slept with the women who served at the entrance to the tent of meeting.
All right. So then he starts to hear this, right? Now Eli is very old. That detail is in there. A lot of people think it's because they're saying, oh, Eli's so weak. No. This detail is in there because for the Jewish community, for a male to be that old and have sons, that would mean that his position was very high. Anything he would have said, he would be like a godfather in the Jewish home. Even more important, and you're going to see how his sons respond to that. But he was aware of what his sons were doing to the people of Israel. He knew, for instance, that his son was seducing the young women who assisted at the entrance of the tabernacle. Eli knew of these evil deeds, but he didn't do anything till he heard the rumors. What does that tell you? It's like that monarch, that king, that they know that their son is doing all these things. But it's not important until
Sparks the light.
there's rumors now. Now it's an issue. But you have to remember, Eli's not a king. Eli is a priest. And thus, if he knew, what does that show you about his training? That early on, he didn't instill discipline in his children. Why? Because the sin's smaller, greater, until they're blatantly having what? Taking women. This is like, besides like killing Eli himself, these are outrageous sins that they are committing. And Eli hears them and he does nothing. It's easy to judge this because you're like, oh, he's a leader. But in your own home, do you know how many parents I talk to that allow outrageous sins to happen under their roof? And what? They do nothing until it starts coming out as a rumor. Oh, now the church knows about this sin. Now it's a big deal. Now we have to deal with it. But let me tell you something. It starts early. When you start to notice, when you start to see that there's an issue, God starts to reveal something to you. You're supposed to correct it early, but what happens? We don't want to think that our kid is capable of this. They say, oh, you know what? I see that he's sneaking off with his phone back there. But instead of addressing it, we want to turn our eye because I don't want to see that kid like that. No, take that phone. See what he's looking at. See what she's looking at. See what she's getting into. They say, oh, I don't want to impede. They're already 17 years old, Krista. They are in your household. You are responsible. And I'm going to show you where God comes directly to Eli to hold him accountable for his children. Your children. The children that are in your home, you are responsible for. Understand what they're watching, what they're listening to, what they're doing. They're not your friends. Amen. You are an authority over them. Why? And you're going to see the consequences of not doing this. And I see this so much time after time. Good, godly parents and their children are far from the Lord. Why? Because they don't want to actually have any kind of consequence for their king or their queen that live in their house. But it's important that you instill the godly character. It's important to say, what are you watching? I was, my daughter likes this little cartoon, and I sat down one day to watch. In a matter of 10 minutes, I saw the propaganda that they're feeding my 4-year-old child. And I said, I can't believe that I was allowing my kid to watch it this long. She's already in like season 2 at that point. Of a child's show. Why? Because I'm oblivious and I'm not in what they're watching, what they're doing. And we just say, no, it's no big deal. Oh, they can go out, they can go with this person. And we don't think about the long-term consequences of what sin can do.
Yeah.
When they get exposed, it starts small in the mind. We all know if we've done a bigger sin, we know where it started. It didn't start off with these crazy, outlandish sins. It started off with seeing a commercial. Maybe they're exposed a little bit, and then what? It piques our interest. Oh, you know what? All my friends are doing this. What would it be like if I were to drink too? Right? And then eventually it leads into more and more sin. We think, I was watching this documentary of this Mormon people, and they're Mormons, if you don't know, their religion is very, very restricted. And apparently she's big on this TikTok thing. I've never even heard of her until I saw this documentary thing. And what they were saying is there was like a scandal. The husband comes out and says, oh, my wife cheated and this, that, and the other. She says, it's not my fault, actually. We were all like doing soft swinging, which I don't know what soft swinging means. But what does she say? It first started off with us drinking together. If you know the Mormon religion, they're not even allowed to drink. And then they're going off, and then they're doing what? More. If we know that that's capable, right? Then we see this big outlandish scandal, but it starts off small. And in your home, you have to remember these things. I see kids that are 17 and 18, guys, that are in crazy things.
Yes.
Very, I wouldn't even imagine it, right? Because for us, you have to go out, you have to purchase something just to go and see something, right? It is in their fingertips. And dopamine, the way that it works, it's, I need more. It's never enough. Sin is never enough. They get into this small, soft porn is what they call it, right? And then they get into the harder stuff and harder, and eventually, the mom, she was like, I've been going to church. I took this kid every day to church. And she's standing in my office crying because the kid is into wild things, illegal things. Why? Because we don't take the time to say, it is my responsibility to get into your life, to instill discipline in your life. But not just discipline, guys, but to show that we love the Lord. That we don't just serve for obligation, but we serve because we love God and the goodness of God. Eli would know, because he did know the Lord. But his sons were far away from the Lord. And you see that with generation. Godly parents, the kids, they get exposed to whatever the parents were. Oh, they did it, so it's okay for me. And eventually, generation after generation, they don't even know who God is. Why? Because it started with you, with compromise. Compromise in your home. Who stands for what is right? Who says, in our home, we will not do this. In our home, we're not going to drink. In our home, we're not going to smoke. In our home, we're not going to watch this. I don't care if all the other teenagers are watching rated R movies. I'm not going to watch that. We're not going to watch that. You may call me strict or crazy, but you know what I'm doing? I'm protecting my children from something, from the enemy that's crouching there to take and devour my kid.
Yes, absolutely.
It is not okay for them to be watching you do these things. It's not okay for them to be watching you act erratic with each other. It is not okay for them to see this. Why? Because it starts to compromise in their mind. This is okay. It's okay for, and mom and dad were yelling and throwing each other everywhere, what do you think they're gonna think? It's okay. Oh, my mom was out partying every weekend.
At church on Sunday.
Church on Sunday, so why can't I do it? And then we're crying. Why? Because we don't know where they're at 3 o'clock in the morning. Compromise in the home leads to greater discipline, guys. Greater consequences. Death, sin. If you love your child, we are responsible for instilling discipline. So we're going to see how he responds. So verse 23, Eli said to them.
So he said to them, why do you do such things? I hear from all the people about the wicked deeds of yours. No, my sons, the report I hear spreading among the Lord's people is not good.
So he hears about it, and then he gives them what does he say? I have been hearing reports from the people about the wicked things you are doing. Why do you keep sinning? You must stop, my sons. The reports I hear from the Lord among the Lord's people are not good. If someone sins against another person, God can mediate for the guilty party. But if someone sins against the Lord, who can intercede? But Eli's sons wouldn't listen to their father, for the Lord was already planning to put them to death. What do you see here? They don't heed their father's advice. Why? Because you taught them early on that they don't have to listen to you. They don't
fear the Lord at all.
They don't fear the Lord because they don't know the Lord.
Yeah,
They don't know the Lord.
that's right.
Listen, ladies, I know it's hard, even for me. Let your husbands discipline their children. I know, ouch, I'd say that too, right? Antonio gets a little loud. I'm like,
Yeah.
my protective instincts say,
Back.
what did he do? Let me tell you, it is important. It is important because they have to heed their father's voice. They have to heed your voice. They should not be talking back to you. I see some moms, they're like, oh, look at my kid, he's cursing, how cute. He's saying that for every other, right? And it's outlandish to me. Why? Because they should heed your words with respect and honor. And what do you see Eli doing? He is leading them to their death. Oh, that's dramatic, Krista. It is true. It is true. My parents used to give this whole speech. I used to be so annoyed. Every time we do something wrong, they'd say, oh, you sin. Do you want us to sin against the Lord too, Krista? It just their look too, really, no, they didn't do that. But very condescending in my little child mind. But it's true. As an adult, I understand this. Why? Because just because you do something wrong, don't cause me to sin as well. Why? Because it is a sin. When your kid does something wrong and you don't provide the proper discipline that God called you to do as their leader, as their authority, you are sinning, but much more, you're sending them to their death. It is important, guys. It is important. You see that he gives them a lecture. These sins that they were creating as priests were punishable by death. At any point, Eli could have put them to death for those sins. But what does he say? Why are y'all doing this, sons?
The people are talking.
People are saying things, and I hear this from the parents. I say, oh, how's your kid? Oh, she's just so close to the Lord. And I see 2 weeks ago they're posting all this marijuana stuff, and I'm like, look, I'm not asking that your kid is like, you tell me all these things, but what I'm saying is be authentic.
Yeah.
Because the Lord sees these things, and you're leading your child to death.
Yeah.
They're not authentic because they don't want to see. but we are responsible for our children. So what is he saying? He says, oh no, my sons, a mild rebuke for capital offenses. The issue is not that Eli lacked information. The issue is that Eli lacked obedience. Later, you're going to hear where he says, you honor your sons above me. You honor your kids above me. What is that verse saying? Put that on your wall too whenever your kids are... Why? Because I have to honor the Lord before I honor you. Why? Because if I don't show that I'm submissive to the Lord, you won't be submissive to the Lord. If you're not submitting to the Lord when it's difficult, when you say, I'm not going to go out and drink and do all these things, I'm not going to go out and show you what this life is about. If you're not obedient, you're showing them how to walk in disobedience. You are showing them firsthand what it's like to live in that world, what it's like to give rise to your anger, what it's like to do exactly what you want to do when you want to do it. So don't cry later when they're doing exactly what you showed them to do. And you see that. Moms mourning over their children. Why? Because they didn't instill it early in their life to say, the Lord is first in this home.
Yes.
The Lord is first before this marriage. The Lord is first before these kids. The Lord is first in my life, child. I will serve the Lord, and thus you will serve the Lord.
Yes, amen.
You can choose afterwards, and they may.
They did.
But we will serve the Lord. That is the heart of the matter. It's misplaced honor. When we protect our children from consequences instead of protecting God's holiness, we reverse priorities. We reverse priorities. Struggle is good for your children. Allow them to struggle. Allow them the natural. Don't save them from everything. You see mothers, they run to the aid. Oh, my child is suffering. Let me give them $500. What are you teaching them? I don't have to work for that. I don't have to struggle for that. And then you wonder why it's hard to get them out of your house. One thing that, for especially my mom, she would take half of our paycheck. Every paycheck, I was 16 years old. I only made $300 every 2 weeks. 150 went to the house. What did she show? I don't get all of my paycheck now, ever. Work for what you have. Do, serve, be a hard worker. They show by example. They took. People say that's mean to do to your kid. No. What are you showing them? That it's important to use your hands to earn what you have. But moms want to nurture so much that they enable. I have 25-year-olds coming with their moms to their appointments. There's something wrong with that picture. And I say, you need to stay here, they'll come with me. Why? Because what have you shown that I need to care so much that they can't struggle, but it's only to please yourself because you're not doing that kid any good. You're not doing that kid.
Sister, I want to share a scripture that I have found when you were saying, like, don't be a willing party. It's in Proverbs 19, verse 18. It says, discipline your children, for in that there is hope. Do not be a willing party to their death. I just thought that was
Yes.
All right, it's good.
Write that down. Remember that.
Proverbs 19.
So he says, meanwhile, as young Samuel grew taller, he also continued to gain favor with the Lord and with the people. So meanwhile, while his sons are going out doing what they want, you see Samuel growing in the things of the Lord. So 27, I'm going to get to this rebuke because now we'll be on chapter 2. One day a prophet came to Eli and gave him a message from the Lord. Didn't I reveal myself to your ancestors? When the people of Israel were slaves in Egypt, I chose your ancestor Aaron from among all his relatives to be my priest, to offer sacrifices on my altar pleasure to burn incense and to wear the priestly garments as he served me. And I assigned the sacrificial offerings to you priests. So why do you scorn my sacrifices and offerings? Why do you honor your sons more than me? I like that if you're a parent. For you, they have become fat from the best offerings of my people. Therefore, the Lord, the God of Israel says, the terrible things you are doing cannot continue. I had promised that your branch of the tribe of Levi would always be my priest, but I will honor only those who honor me, and I will despise those who despise me. I will put an end to your family, and it will no longer serve as my priest. All the members of your family will die before their time. None will live to ripe old age. You will watch with envy as I pour out prosperity on the people of Israel, but no members of your family will ever live out their days. Those who are left alive would live in sadness and grief, and their children will die a violent death. And to prove that what I have said will come true, I will cause your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, to die on the same day. Then I will raise up a faithful priest who will serve me and do what I tell him to do. I will bless his descendants, and his family will be priests to my anointed kings forever. Then all of your descendants will bow before his descendants, begging for money and food. Please, they will say, give us jobs among the priests so we will have enough to eat. What is he saying? Again, their line goes back to Egypt. He says, I called Aaron to be a priest. Your line is a priestly line. You were called to continue to serve me as the priest. And because you're not fulfilling your purpose, and because you failed to put me before your children, I thus have to instill consequences. What are the consequences? I am going to take that duty that was supposed to be an honor from your family, not just your family, but your descendants and generations to come. That's the start line for you. Your home can be greatly blessed. Just like Hannah. You think that nobody of that woman that everybody would laugh at had the position that Samuel was going to provide for her? That nobody thought was worthy of that? Where she was crying at the altar, praying day in and day out because she chose to be obedient to the Lord. In conflict to this other family who had it from Aaron, position, power, the ability to serve. But what did they do? They took what was an honor and they used it to glorify themselves. They used pleasure. They said, I want to do what I want to do, my household. Instead of saying, doing the difficult thing to say, I'm going to push up against sin. If that means that you and I are at odds because you're my child, then we are at odds. You know why? Because in my household, we will serve the Lord. Amen. If I have to address your sin, we will address it. If we have to have hard conversations, we will have hard conversations. Why? Because I love you, child. Because I don't want to lose you to the world. But more so, I don't want my line, generations from generations, to continue in this bondage, to continue in sin, to continue doing what has been done, to say it's okay for me to do this. It's okay that we're doing this. No, it's not. He's saying, I'm going to stand firm on the righteousness of God. And if that means that we have to come into conflict, we will. And let me tell you, me and my parents had much conflict growing up. Why? Because they would address the sin immediately. Immediately. In your household, do you say to sin, I'm not going to compromise? When my husband was doing wrong, I had to say, look, you can do what you want to do out of this household. Why? Because me and my household will serve the Lord. Because my children and those children and their children, I have to be strong for my family. I have to be obedient to the Lord. Maybe this is a hard situation. Maybe it's not convenient for me to live like this. Maybe it's financially more difficult. Maybe it's hard for me to be obedient. But I have to, because I love the Lord more than I love you. I love the Lord more than I love you, kids. More than I love you, husband. But I see this so much is compromise after compromise because they call it love. But what does he say? You are sending them to your death. If there's no love for God and your children, who do you have to look at? If your children hate God or they're doing things contrary to the Word of God, and I'm not saying there's exceptions to all these cases, but what I'm saying is, guys, be like Hannah. Make those priestly robes day in and day out. Solomon, he doesn't like to come to church. My daughter, she does. He says, I don't want to go to morning church. And I say, we're going to morning church. You know why? Because I have to instill this is good. Even when you don't want to, we are obedient. Children, we're all lining up. Even if we don't feel like it, we're going. Why? Because God is good. Because God is going to break chains in my household. Why? Because I'm not going to be okay with compromise anymore. We are going to do what is right by the Lord.
Can I say,
Yes.
I was having that problem with Ronnie, and he was telling me he didn't want to go to church. If we were praying, he would cover his ears, he didn't want to get the music, he didn't want any of that. For 6 months, he would have a fit, and I was like, no, we're still going to do it. I don't care if you don't want to hear it or what, we're still going to do it. And now, he is reading the Word, and he wants to hear the Christian music, and he wants to do Bible studies, because he's we're doing Bible studies, so I have to plan little Bible studies with him, and I make him act it out. But it was the persistency of doing that. It doesn't matter what you want, we're still gonna do it. This is what we do. We still go to church, we still do that. And now, after 6 months, he's accepted it, it changed, and now he wants to. And I really believe that reading, I got him a book that he could read himself, and he finished the whole book the other day, so now I'm looking for a new one. So he finished the whole Bible, and he was excited that he had read all those stories himself. And I believe him, by him reading it too, he's reading the Word, and it's changing him.
Even that young.
The seeds are being planted.
So it's not just Solomon?
It's not
No, it's
Pastor Solomon. Discipline precedes instruction. Discipline precedes instruction. What does that mean? If you're good with your discipline, eventually when they grow older, all you have to do is instruct them. Because they won't be perfect. You have to remember your son, your daughter, your little king, your little